So, while the rest of us are busy stealing, killing, lying, fighting to try to survive, you get to think all day.
Well, it's a strange world we live in, Arthur Morgan.
A strange world indeed, Mr. Half-Man, Half-Terminal Case of Lumbago. And if you told me back when I first played this game that I would be making a video about the most useless and most parasitic character in the entire audio universe, I would have called you crazy. Add to that the fact that I would have a channel that crossed 500 subscribers, I would have definitely been calling Arkham myself to turn you in.
911, what's your emergency?
Anyway, I think this character does not really need any introduction. He has been a part of our everyday outlaw life ever since Red Dead Redemption 1 came out back in 2010. Despite being labeled by many a lazy, good-for-nothing, washed-up drunk with a case of terminal lumbago, he actually is a lot smarter than we ever gave him credit for. Born to an unnamed mother and father, Uncle, also nicknamed the One-Shot Kid among the ladies of the Vandalin gang for his signature climax, is a character whose importance you probably didn't even realize. After covering Charles, Micah, and Dutch in my previous 3 videos, I finally arrived at the man who single-handedly managed to prevent a lumbago epidemic from spreading. Uncle Red Harlow. In this video, we'll be covering why Uncle was smarter than you'd think, as well as breaking down the many ways he managed to survive for so long while technically being the most useless character in the history of video games. If there's one thing that we know about Uncle, it's that he wants people to think that he's an idiot. He knows how to play the part, and genuinely, he's really convincing at being a fool. But here's the thing about truly smart people. They know how to avoid work, take credit when it benefits them, and stay alive when everyone else is dying around them. The same can be applied to Uncle, as he absolutely weaponizes his own uselessness. He never really volunteers for anything, and even the few instances of work he proposes, it's usually the rest of the gang doing the heavy lifting while he rests his case of terminal lumbago. But despite all of this, Dutch, Arthur, and even John always let him stick around. Why is that exactly, you might ask yourself? And to be fair, it might just be the writers leaving him there for comedic value. In reality, the real reason is that he seems too pathetic to be considered a real threat. Arthur sees him as a dummy drunk with no real purpose, which is pretty much the same way John sees him. While Dutch doesn't see him at all. One of the main reasons I absolutely love Rockstar and their games is the fact that each character is uniquely layered and has a lot to bring to the table, even if their role in the game is not a major one. When it comes to Uncle's personality, we can see that he always played the long game. While everyone was playing chess, Uncle was playing who's going to survive this mess. He always knew what to say, even if it was a dumb thing to say. Even when the gang was falling apart, he remained neutral, watching while others were fighting to death. And in the end, he was the ultimate conman. He was smart enough to realize that he can have others do everything for him while he could reap the benefits. Despite claiming to be a thief and a con artist, we actually never see him steal anything. Instead, he convinces other people to do his bidding. When you think about it, that is social engineering at its finest. Of course, this doesn't mean that Uncle was secretly a mastermind controlling things behind the scenes, but it does mean that he really isn't the idiot everyone assumed him to be. Because while the rest of the gang was either dying or on the run, Uncle was still breathing and living his best life at that. Now, if we're being honest, Uncle should have been dead years ago. The man does not possess any survival skills that could save him out in the wild. So how did he manage to survive 2 different gangs, the Pinkertons, a full-on manhunt, and a literal zombie apocalypse in Undead Nightmare? Well, the answer to that is actually pretty simple. In a world where everyone is trying to prove themselves with a gun, Uncle somehow manages to stay out of the crossfire. He never really makes any enemies, neither does he actually step on many toes. Yes, he was a master at pissing people off, but only enough not to get shot. And that itself is a skill that no one else in the Red Dead universe possesses. When the gang is thriving, he's there drinking and having a good time. But as soon as things starts falling apart, he keeps his head down, staying incognito like you when you were a teenager.
No.
One of the main reasons why he ended up surviving as long as he did is the fact that for every situation, he always has an excuse ready. Be it, I got lumbago, I'm an old man, or I ain't built for this. He wasn't just complaining. He was actually using a carefully developed survival strategy that he continued to rely on until his death. The more helpless he seemed, the less likely anyone was to shoot him. He didn't just survive RDR 2. He ended up making it all the way to the endgame of RDR 1. And at the end of the day, he is proof that survival isn't just about being the toughest or most skilled. It's about being the smartest at avoiding any responsibility that could put you in a life-threatening situation. When we first meet him in Chapter 1, Arthur is immediately antagonizing him for being absolutely useless.
What a surprise. To find a camp rat loitering around in the kitchen.
Is that any way to greet an old friend? I feel like we haven't spoken for days.
I do my utmost to avoid you.
He loves me, really. It's his sad way of showing affection.
No, it isn't. Now shoot, get lost.
Well, see you gents later.
And every time you catch him at camp, he is either getting drunk, sleeping with his rear end exposed, or hanging out at the campfire getting even more drunk. Despite Arthur considering him nothing more but a parasite and
Compulsive liar.
he doesn't seem like a character that has a lot to offer. But beneath that facade of drunken old lazy guy lies a heart of gold. When comparing Uncle to everyone else in the gang, he actually is the one and only character besides Charles and Arthur that ended up being truly loyal. Once we take control of John in the epilogue, Uncle's spirit can be felt flying around the Pronghorn Ranch area, guiding John towards finding him. This to me felt like two souls who were meant to be with each other, slowly clashing again in the endless vastness of the space-time continuum. And when I say this, I genuinely mean this. Like, fuck Abigail. Uncle and John are the real love story of the Red Dead universe. On the surface, it might seem like Uncle only ever stuck around the Marston family because he had nowhere else to go. The reality is that he did, as he didn't really need anyone in particular to stick with. He was a drifter and a survivor through and through. Someone who, despite everything, managed to find a way to slip out of danger. This sentence right here is what really ties into what Uncle's character stood for. For all the schemes and all the lumbago jokes, Uncle in the end did one thing that Dutch never thought of. He stayed loyal to family. Even if that family wasn't really his to begin with, he stood with John in his last stand against the corrupt government that was tying up loose ends. Uncle could have easily left when the government came after John, as he had every opportunity to run, but he decided to stay. For all his laziness and his cowardly way of life, he actually tried to help John protect his home, even if he did it while complaining. In the final battle, Uncle doesn't hide. He doesn't run or look for excuses to get out of the mess in front of them. He fights and goes out like a hero, protecting the future that John was trying to build. This here is extremely poetic, as for the first time in his lumbago-riddled life, he put someone else above himself. And that's when he dies. This is on one hand tragic, but also extremely satisfying, as in a way, Uncle as well ended up redeeming himself for everything that he didn't do before. He wasn't a horrible person, and he didn't really commit countless acts of violence against random folk.
You're a good man.
So his redemption wasn't one of glamour. He went out guns blazing, trying to protect the folks that took care of an old useless bum. He might have never really showed any gratitude, nor a real commitment to do any meaningful work. But despite all of that, he was still a character that managed to help John build his dream home. Uncle never really wanted to work, but in the end, he tried. In his own lazy and sarcastic way, of course, he ended up helping John maintain the ranch, handled supplies, and even when he would complain, he would still pull his own weight. In a way, he was there from the start, and in the end, he was the last gang member to stand by John with a rain of bullets coming their way. At this point, when things were clearly ending, Uncle stood as a symbol of how treating a family member right, despite them not being useful, is key, as you never know when the government is going to hunt you down for being a part of a notorious band of outlaws. Uncle might have been horrible with kids, but in the end, he helped raise Jack in his own weird way. He ended up playing the goofy and lazy uncle role perfectly, so John could be the tough father that Jack needed. Now, of course, he played that role even before Jack was born, but he really upped his game at Beach's Hope. Not many side characters in video games actually stick with you as much as Uncle did for the fans of Red Dead Redemption. He might be a meme and a joke of sorts to many, but he's so much more than just that. What people fail to notice when it comes to Uncle is that he actually had a huge impact on the development of John Marston. Whenever Uncle made a sarcastic remark about John being a family man, or when he called him out for not spending time with Jack, John actually listened and tried to be better. Here, we can easily see how important this man was not just to John, but the Marston family as a whole. Micah might have been a smart rat and a master manipulator, Dutch might have had a plan, but Uncle was the ultimate survivor and family man. Of course, until he wasn't. But despite facing a horrible ending, he didn't die in vain. He ended up dying so John's legacy could live on. He knew that there was no way out of the situation that they were facing, and like many great characters before him, he faced the incoming storm head on. His story is the story of Red Dead Redemption. Even if he isn't the main character in either one of the games, he is still a major part of it. Without Uncle, who knows what would have happened to the Marston family once Ross came for them. Without Uncle, who would be our favorite gang member to antagonize in RDR 2? No matter what you think of his personality and overall laziness, no one can deny the importance of this man. So after all of this, was Uncle truly just a washed up drunk, or was he the smartest man in the West? Because at the end of the day, he did what no one else could. He outlived pretty much the entire gang, ended up escaping Dutch's madness without ever choosing a side, all while avoiding Pinkertons, bounty hunters, and every major gang in the region. Well, except for one. And most importantly, he never had to do any honest work in his entire life. And as previously said, the one time he actually decided to care and put in the work, he ended up paying the ultimate price. So, was Uncle an idiot or a genius? The real answer is that he was both. Either way, one thing is for sure. Unlike Dutch, Uncle definitely had a plan. Anyways, thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. And I want to take a moment to thank all of the 532 people that ended up subscribing. A big thank you goes out to all of you, as well as the ones who left these comments on my previous video. You folks are the best. If you haven't already, please feel free to hit that like button, and of course subscribe for a chance to win an RTX 7090 card once this channel reaches 10 million. Stay silly, keep patching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.